You are a self-taught developer. And what was the thing that you wish someone had told you before about becoming a self-taught developer, especially in Germany?
Programming is about practice. A good thing to know is no matter how many videos you're gonna watch or courses you're gonna take, you probably won't be good at coding. I say you should just start building your projects. Don't watch stuff. Go on YouTube. Don't buy these courses. Don't read these books. I've never been asked to show any of my degrees. I'm glad I stayed in this profession despite all the hurdles in the beginning because it was worth it.
Meet Olga, better known as Coding Elf. She's a self-taught full-stack developer based in Berlin and the creator of a thriving community that helps tech enthusiasts and freelancers follow their dreams in tech.
I was just surprised about how many people got inspired from what I do. And I got a lot of comments, especially also from women. I made more than I would do in 1.5 years, working full-time with no freedom and constant meetings.
Before we jump into today's conversation, take a second to follow Berlin and Elsewhere podcast. It really helps us to grow, and you will get every news story about life and people in Berlin right in your feed. We are building a space for curious minds, creators, and expats who call Berlin home. So make sure you're subscribed to Berlin and Elsewhere podcast so you can also be part of it. Dankeschön. Coding Elf. Are you a geek or something, or why did you pick Elf?
I really like fantasy books. Sometimes I like to read fantasy.
Okay.
And I was reading The Lord of Rings.
Yeah, okay.
And they have this character of an elf, which I liked the most out of all the characters. And at the same time, I was learning how to code. And in the very beginning, code to me seemed a bit like magic. Of course, I knew it's not like that, but I like to think that's something that has a lot of hidden features and stuff I could learn. And yeah, I kind of romanticized it in a way.
You are a self-taught developer. And what was the thing that you wish someone had told you before about becoming a self-taught developer, especially in Germany?
Yeah, perhaps that I should not have watched so many YouTube tutorials. Yeah, that's not that helpful. Programming is about practice. A good thing to know is no matter how many videos you're going to watch or courses you're going to take, you probably won't be good at coding after that. And I used to watch a bunch of stuff and doing lots of courses and still could never just sit down and write my own program. Because that's kind of difficult. So our brain postpones this. We avoid this uncomfortable situation. But that's the only way to learn how to do things in programming and in any discipline which requires some kind of practical experience. So I wish I would just start building apps earlier, hands-on, without watching all the YouTubers and taken all these courses. But I quite quickly found a job, so that allowed me to learn hands-on while I'm working. And still, I always had this idea that I had to read all of these things and watch all of these things. I had a lot of tabs. I had a lot of bookmarks saved for later. And all of that was more like theory. And I think theory in coding comes after practice oftentimes, or at least you understand it better once you tried something. And that's why when people ask me, how do I learn programming? I say you should just start building your projects. Like, don't watch stuff, don't go on YouTube, don't buy these courses, don't read these books, because you won't learn to do it on your own. I mean, it all, like, when you watch someone do things, you don't think in this moment. You don't work on this essential skill that is required, which is to solve problems on your own, to think on your own. Somebody thinks for you. And so this is the skill which is needed.
And what brought you originally to Germany?
I was at a school which was specializing in German. back where I'm from Russia. And we just had a lot of German weekly. And my school was collaborating with some German schools, so we went to exchange semesters back then. And then I was studying in Moscow, like studying bachelor's, and I also did a semester abroad, which was in Berlin. And I just fell in love with Berlin. So back then it was all about moving here because I loved the city so much, especially like when you're in your early 20s. I just wanted to have fun.
Yeah. Eventually you found a way to move here and to stay here. And how did you first get into programming? What was your first experience with it?
I'd say my path is not as traditional as many people have, although nowadays it has changed because a lot of people teach themselves programming nowadays. But in any case, I was studying something else. I moved to Germany to continue this education. And then I taught myself how to code and found my first job. And it wasn't simple because basically I worked, I studied, and every day after work and studying, I sat down for hours and learned how to code, and then was applying for jobs, having multiple interviews. My first job in tech was very challenging, emotionally as well. But in a way, I'm glad I stayed in this profession despite all the hurdles in the beginning because it was worth it.
What do you mean by it was challenging emotionally? In which sense?
Before starting in tech, I already had quite an extensive experience in digital marketing and conversion optimization. So I worked in big companies before, and I was treated really nicely, and my career was evolving. So the logical thing for me was to continue with marketing, but I always wanted to build versus to sell. And that's what I finally realized, and that's when I decided to switch the perspective, teach myself how to program, despite all the thoughts and opinions that came at me at this point. And the very first job which I've gotten was very challenging because I was a noob and I wasn't as supported as I wanted to be. And in many regards, it's understandable, I guess, because I just took the first job which came up in tech without really researching the environment or the team, which is on me. But I would recommend people who start in coding to primarily look at the environment they're getting into, because if you're just starting, you need to be supported emotionally, because programming is a job where you need to learn a lot, you need to overcome a lot of challenges. And that's very important that people who surround you believe in you and support you.
But sometimes when you are starting, you don't have so many options.
That is true. Yeah, and this is kind of a trade-off which I had to go through. So my first job in tech wasn't very, and I also really don't want to talk about it, to be honest, but I'm glad that I stayed despite a lot of difficulties, because that just has proven to me that I was meant for this job, and that despite very difficult emotional situation, I stayed, and the job after that was absolutely amazing, and I enjoyed every bit of it. And now, while contracting and freelancing, it's rewarding both financially and emotionally. So I'm really happy I did this choice in the end.
I know you don't want to talk about it, but I just want to know, was it about the team lead or the lead developer that you had there? Or was it about the company itself?
No, it was more that in comparison to all the previous jobs where I had a lot of fun and it was interesting to work with people, at that time it was quite challenging in this regards, also because of Corona happened and I was at home a lot. So it was a lot of just being lonely and fighting lots of difficulties with work, learning quite a bit, studying at the same time, working at the same time, transitioning into this new career, being quite new in Berlin, finishing my master's. So there were a lot of moments where I could have just gone back to what I've been doing before, but I stayed and I was really happy that I did that.
Yeah. I also had an experience with a lead developer who really treated me like really bad, that I was doubting a lot of my skills. And I was thinking, I have been doing this like for 6-7 years, and this guy is really making me doubt about my career and about if I'm competent or not in what I'm doing. And sometimes there's a lot of factors that make you doubt if you're even capable of working at all. And I also found it like a very stressing moment sometimes in this career. But what was the thing that actually pushed you to learn how to code? Was it because Mark Zuckerberg and everyone's started to say coding is the skill that you need to learn?
So I think I had this a bit of trying different professions. I worked in writing, and I did marketing, then I did digital marketing, then I did conversion optimization, I did social media, I built websites for some times, I did design. So I really tested quite a few professions, I'd say, before I arrived at the conclusion that I wanted to go deeper into building websites, because already I had the background in design. With digital marketing, I did a lot of data analysis, and for conversion optimization, you do things like A/B testing, you analyze different features. So I already saw this world. I was just not quite working in building something with code, although sometimes I was asked to tweak some things, so I already knew the basics, I'd say. But I really wanted to be a software engineer. Like, I wanted to have this title. And I guess partially the reason is my curiosity. In my family, lots of people have engineering degrees, and I was never pushed to do something. I was quite early on interested in things like literature and history and arts, and I still am. I think I'm quite a versatile person, to be honest, because I'm equally drawn to humanities as much as to tech side, and I still haven't chosen. Like, I'm equally interested in both things. But with programming, it was something challenging. It was just this idea that I could do something like that. Like, I could learn all of this on my own, get a very well paid, respected profession, kind of prove to myself that it's not too late. That's how I used to think before when I was 20. And of course, just because there was a lot of narrative around, you don't have to go to college to become a programmer, versus with other very high paid professions like lawyers or doctors, it wasn't possible. Of course, I seized this opportunity. It was great. And I tried things before I completely went into it, right? So I did some courses, and I absolutely loved working with code. And it did seem like magic, and that's how it all started for me. And at the same time, back then, I started sharing my journey online with my Instagram, and partially because back then it wasn't as popular. Instagram was still more about fashion and beauty, and people weren't back then sharing something like, look how I'm learning. That wasn't the case like 8 years ago. And I was just surprised about how many people got inspired from what I do. And I got a lot of comments, especially also from women, that, wow, like, and from self-taught programmers, from immigrants, So I did feel a bit like minority, because I was in a new country. I was very young. I was a girl. I didn't have a computer science degree. So in a way, everything I did back then seemed to be illogical. Now it makes sense, of course. But just to clarify, I do have like 2 degrees. So I did finish 2 colleges in humanities, and I'm really, really happy about this choice as well, because as I mentioned, I'm extremely still interested in social science, arts, history, literature. I use it daily when I work on my channel, when I talk to people, and everything started making sense to me now. Like, I'm grateful for all the choices that I've done, although sometimes I doubted them, but in the end, it was great.
I wonder, because you have the people who did a computer science degree and the people who are the self-taught. Did you ever feel that there was some sort of like not discrimination, but like some sort of like stigma about being a self-taught developer?
I've never been asked to show any of my degrees. I did courses in math additional to my other courses just to make sure that in case I'd be asked, I have something like that to show. I did courses from the Harvard University. I did all kind of famous popular courses on computer science, on software engineering, on math, even on physics, not just, working with frameworks, but really deep dive. And in fact, now I am in the second year of computer science degree. So I decided to do it after all. And I'm studying remotely. And by now I studied all the math classes and everything. And I still don't quite understand if it's needed, to be honest, because first, I've never been asked for to show anything like that by any interviewer. It always came down to being able to solve problems. And my favorite interviews are those when they don't ask any syntaxes from you, but really go through how to solve a particular problem. Like they see how your mind works. And what they ask could only be trained through years of experience as a programmer. So whatever I say, I learned it in my job. And it has nothing to do with any of the materials that I either studied myself or even now had in college while I was studying computer science. I still think that studying computer science in college helps. And it helps, first of all, to feel that you have it, like you just feel more confident, which is a very important thing. Like it's one of the most important things to show that you're confident. I'd say in college, the materials are outdated. So oftentimes you would have to still watch all the same courses you would do anyways on your own. So if having a piece of paper makes you feel better, you can absolutely do that. Again, that's, I guess, partially why I am doing it, because in the end, perhaps it feel better. But you don't have to do that. But you need to do it anyways yourself. Like there is no way you can learn programming just by doing nothing,
That thing about like if it makes you feel confident, then it works. I mean, it's totally right, because when you're confident about something, you're more likely to do it better just by the fact that you believe in yourself. If the degree makes you feel more competent or more confident about it, you are in the best position to perform better. And if you don't need that, it's still okay. The most important thing is that you feel that you're capable of and that you have, that you're trusting that you have the knowledge.
The reason I'm doing this because I've always been fascinated by science and specifically technology. And I am considering to do a PhD at some point and research a specific topic, which I haven't completely made my mind about it, but it might happen. So in this case, I'd like to have it.
Then was the moment where you had a job and then you decided to quit your job and become a freelancer, and you went to Bali. And how do you get your first client? And basically, maybe walk me through what was happening in your mind when you decided, you know what, I'm going to risk it. I want to go to another place and work as a freelancer.
I mean, just to clarify, I don't think I was really risking something in this regards. Like I had a full-time job. It was great. I enjoyed working with people at this company. I learned a lot, great memories. I left it because I wanted to switch to contracts because they pay more money, much more money, 5 times more. And then you're free to move. Like you can travel, you can work remotely, and you also work much more and have much more responsibilities, which people quite often don't talk about. This contract I found in a very funny way. I just applied to a few companies regularly, the way people apply to jobs, just filtered them by contracts instead of full-time positions. And I think the next day I got a call.
Yeah.
And then I had like in this very moment, the first interview. I think I was in the car. And I wasn't taking it seriously at all because I was thinking it can be true. I can just apply, get a call next day and have my first interview. And I was very confident because by then I've accumulated a lot of experience. And for the position I was interviewed for, which was a senior software engineer, all the questions they asked me also on the spot, I knew the answers to. And then they gave me a task, which was very interesting. And I completed the task. They really liked it, and they hired me within a week. And it was a 6-month contract, which so far has been the best job I've ever had. It's been the most challenging job I've ever had. But also I was extremely lucky with my teammates. We are still in contact. They're amazing people. My tech lead is one of the coolest people I've ever met, like so smart. He didn't micromanage us. He gave us as much freedom as we wanted, was very protective of us. And my colleagues were very smart people, very cool to work with from all over the world. I had this sensation of freedom that I don't have to ask for permission to go abroad. I do my own taxes. I hate it, but in a way, nobody was taking money away from me. Again, I was paid a lot, and I was in a way free to travel, to say that I work for myself. What people often don't say is that I actually ended up working maybe I ended up working 50 hours a week instead of my usual hours that I used to work. As a senior developer, I had a lot of responsibilities. The company was very young, so they didn't have a lot of tools and technologies in place that simplify your work. We had to do everything from scratch. It wasn't sometimes organized as well as it is in big tech companies where everything is just handed over to you. We just had to come up with our own solutions that stretched beyond the scope of just being a developer. We were organizing ourselves. We were creating our own pages, documentations. We were sometimes writing our own tickets for ourselves, scheduled meetings on our own without anybody asking us to do so. Probably, if you would ask me for a very simple answer why I quit my full-time job, I wouldn't even say for money. It was for meetings. They took more than 50% of my time.
Wow.
And it was a complete waste of time. And I don't get it. I don't understand this. And it's exhausting. And I hate meetings when they're not needed. Also, when I say I quit my full-time job, I got a full-time contract and return still more than a full-time job. Good thing about contracts, they end and then you make a lot of money. You can take a break for half a year, travel, see the world, learn new skills. That's what I did as well.
So in those 5 months, you make what you would have needed for a whole year, basically.
I'd say in my case, it was 6 months. I made more than I would do in 1.5 years of working full-time with no freedom and constant meetings. But again, it was very challenging. In many ways, I was working more hours. I was taking this project by heart. I treated it like a baby. I was upset when it was over. For a while, you feel very lost. And you start thinking, maybe I need to find something else immediately. But then you're very, very tired. So it's not like that you are having this job and then you're chilling at the beach. I spend most of my times indoors working. I had time to go to the gym and see my friends. And I was very happy to be in a warm climate. But I was working a lot. And I was learning quite a lot as well. And I have my business on the side and I have my studies on the side and my friends, my family, my wellness. So it's a trade-off that you need a break after that for sure.
Yeah. How long were you working, let's say, as a digital nomad?
I mean, I started traveling even while having my full-time employment job.
And
So in Germany, you could find companies where you work remotely, and this has been always my requirement. I haven't been to an office for over 8 years now.
Wow.
I don't take jobs where I have to go to the office. In fact, there was no office in Berlin because my company was based in another city in Germany. So in a way, I always dreamt about not going to office, which I've achieved 8 years ago. Then my dream was not being employed and having a contract, which I achieved 2 years ago. And now my dream is not to work at all. That I haven't achieved yet.
Yeah. Let's talk about AI. How much do you think AI has changed the way software engineers work?
When it first came out, I was very...
skeptic.
No, happy.
Happy.
I was very happy, and it looked amazing. And after, I think it's been now almost 2 years, right? Since the release of ChatGPT.
November 2022, I think. Almost 3 years.
Okay, yeah, almost 3 years. Wow. Since then, I am a bit disappointed, but also in a good way. I'm optimistic. I like everything that has to do with the progress. I'm also trying to promote it through my own content to show people that they shouldn't be scared, that they should embrace the progress, the technological advancements. So I think AI has a lot of potential, and I am happy to see everything that's going on, and I do embrace the technology. It unfortunately can do a lot of things that oftentimes people or news claim. So there is a lot of misinformation about AI spread by people who have no idea what it is, which is a bit sad because it makes a lot of people scared. But right now, as of now, it's very limited things you can do with it. It's very helpful, but okay, if we talk about programming, if you generate a lot of code, you'll see some patterns and you can easily say that it's been generated by AI. I think it's great that a lot of boring things will be taken away.
Like writing tests?
Or I like this example with Excel tables, because I honestly, to me, people whose entire work is to fill in tables or write some kind of documentations, it feels like a dish of slavery in a way. So I'm really happy that nobody enjoys these jobs. If only people dream to quit these jobs. So we only profit from these things being automated and taken away. Everybody wants a job where they're creative, innovative, where they can contribute with ideas, where they do something fun. And that's the dream everybody has. So I kind of don't understand when people are upset that AI is taking over a lot of things. And also less work is kind of good. I don't see the point where, there will be no depth. So you always can do more. You always can create more. You can evolve more. You can innovate more. So in terms of hours, I don't see how, the work is becoming less. But a lot of things get faster, and I think it's beautiful, and hopefully we'll reach a point where AI is regulated and configured and developed in a way that it's actually being helpful, and then people could do beautiful things on top of it.
But it's true that you always will need someone who actually knows what is happening there. Therefore, a lot of people are trying to build apps with Replit or Lovable or whatever, and they realize that they have a lot of security issues, or once the tool cannot build the next feature they want, and they get stuck in that bug and they cannot solve it themselves. And then the AI cannot, and then they don't have the expertise to actually, okay, let's open the code and let me do it by hand. I had that experience with Replit also. I was trying to build a wizard form and it was very buggy. And I was like, it doesn't work. All right, I will just open the code and try to read it and see how they can fix it. Not many people who are not technical will be able to do that.
In a way, I think it's good that more people can build apps, software. It doesn't feel that exclusive. It doesn't feel that you have to be that crazy smart. So it has democratized the market. I think whatever direction it's gonna take, we should embrace it.
Yeah. How do you balance, for example, doing content and also keeping yourself up to date in technology, and at the same time having contracts to work as a software engineer?
I'm glad that my content is within the tech industry. Now I've expanded to interview people who do business, like entrepreneurs and digital nomads, but it still all has to do with being on the laptop, working digitally. This research preparation keeps me informed about what's going on. Also, people oftentimes have very interesting things to share. I think you don't really need to read news or every little updates every day. I do it a few times a month because you need to also take some time off and think on your own. As I said before, it's very important to just take time and reflect on your own ideas. Nothing will happen if you will skip the next TypeScript release or something. I used to want to know every little thing, but it doesn't bring you much in the end, to be honest. I found it much more rewarding to talk to people who have experience, who have the ideas. Oftentimes they have a completely different perspective on life than I do. It's liberating and helpful. Also, it's very helpful to stay sane and mentally healthy, to just tell yourself that you don't know everything. So I chose my field. I am unfortunately not a person who knew what to do straight up. I wasn't born as, say, a fantasy writer and I knew about it. I had to find my way. And in a way, I put myself into this. Like, I took a decision. If you ask me if I'm interested in arts or literature or music or psychology, I'd say yes. I am very interested. I'd love to do all of this if I would have infinite amount of time, which I don't. So I am specifically very much interested in technology. So I took a decision to specialize at some point. As humans, we only have as much time. So I am in this field and I am trying to learn and take on as much information as I can. It helps that my content is around it as well. So we kind of see it as two sides of one coin.
It's very interesting that you have this so many interests in life. It happens to a lot of people. And when you are working social media, we have the problem of your niche. Sometimes you want to talk about different stuff, but the algorithm will say, stay in your niche constantly. Maybe sometimes you want to share something more philosophically or from literature or maybe about fantasy, and then you can't because that's not your niche. And if you put it out there, you don't get the same reach as you would have with the tech content, right?
Yeah. Surprisingly, I don't like social media. That's the only way to reach people, which was always the primary goal, to communicate my ideas. It keeps you accountable to do something in public. When I started learning how to code, Instagram served as a diary. It was something that helped me to stay accountable. I felt comfortable because that was my goal. My goal wasn't to grow or to earn from it or to, get famous. It is not now as well. I am interested in sharing my ideas because that's how I am. I like to grow by sharing things. I've always been interested in teaching. As I told you, I'm doing the computer science degree with an idea that I might do a PhD and start teaching people programming or computer science. I've always helped my friends to get a job, to learn something. I've always shared resources with people because I'm really good at finding these things. So I think I have a gift of being able to find the ways to achieve a certain goal and have this structure. When I was sharing it, lots of people found it useful. Now I'm interested in talking to people because I feel like my social media grow with me. So I was learning how to code. I was sharing it. I learned how to code. I got a job. I started sharing how I work as a developer. It continued. Then I started traveling, having more money. I was sharing this lifestyle. Now it's more about I'm interested in business and growth in tech world. So I talk to these people because networking is the most important thing. So it's essential to get out there, tell yourself that maybe you don't know everything and start asking questions. And I had a few talks with people while I was traveling. Every time I thought to myself, damn, it would be so nice to record it at some point to share this, because nobody talks about it. And I started doing it. Lots of people texted me saying, whoa, that's so great, I didn't know that. And that's how it goes along the way. Social media is a dangerous place if you don't know what you want out of it, and if that's the only way for you to find fulfillment, which is not for me. For me, my profession, my work, what I do behind the screens, how I see my career is where I find fulfillment. I've never thought of myself as an influencer or just solely content creator. It was very important to be a software engineer, to have jobs, to progress in this field. And always I do introduce myself as a programmer. I never mention my Instagram because for me, that's a continuation of what I do in my day-to-day life. That's not my primary outlet.
About social media, I see that some people say, yeah, it's a distraction and you don't learn anything. Sometimes it's about how you use it, because sometimes if I compare my feed to any other person's feed who's only people dancing or only fan models there, I'm like, my feed is completely different. It's people trying to teach me something. So what are you talking about? But I think it's a lot about how you use them. And also I'm a creator, so I use it more to create than to consume, or at least I tried that the ratio between consuming and creating in life is at least balanced. I think sometimes we are taught by, I don't know, the big corporate that we should consume more. But I'm like, we should also create. We should have this balance. If it's possible, try to create more than what you consume. And that's also, for example, my motto. What would you say is your motto in life?
Let's say motto is something you tell yourself daily, right? To remind yourself what's the point. So for me, recently it's been that I should see the bright side more than the rest. Because what I've been also learning for the past years is to shift the perspective. We have so many opportunities to see the dark side, to notice the bad news, to get overwhelmed with just the constant crisis that is happening. Every day I wake up, I start with reminding myself about good things, and it helps. I didn't take any course on this, or I don't really follow all this how to get better things. I do believe in them. I just don't have time to read all of that. But simple things as being grateful for what you have, rewiring your thinking every day. Because for me, it's not a natural, or for humans, it's not a natural thing to be positive. We are wired to be negative just to survive. That's how our instincts have remained from the past. Starting your day with just rewiring this thinking into, I have something really interesting to work on. I have my family. I have my friends. I'm in a safe space. I have, something tasty awaiting me to eat. I'm going to go to the gym later on. Then I'm going to travel. So it makes you much more motivated and inspired in life, rather than you wake up, go on your phone, read all the bad news. I don't read news. I do know about them eventually, but I don't specifically read about them. I don't start my day like this. I think it's the worst thing a human can do, to start their day with reading news. That's the worst thing you could ever possibly do, to start reading all the Telegram chats and all the news. And I can't believe people do that. But
I think it's the number one cause of anxiety nowadays.
I don't do it for maybe 10 years. I've never really done it. I done it in college because I was studying political science in my bachelor's, and I felt obligated to be informed for my classes because we had a lot of debates. I felt horrible and I stopped doing it. And this is insane. You should not read news or look at your phone. At least don't look at the information sources when you wake up, like send the keys to your mom, but don't read the news.
Yeah. I think that first moments in the morning set your mood for the whole day.
Yes.
If you start reading about what is happening in Gaza or with Trump or whatever, that will set your mood for the whole day. You can't stop thinking about it and you will just have anxiety. I have stopped also reading news for, I think, the last 6 months or more. And yeah, I don't feel that kind of like anger because news are only there to make you angry somehow.
Creating content, and I've been doing it for many years, helps you to see how business works, which is an essential thing. And every time you consume something, someone benefits from it, right? So someone is making money. So you should be very selective with whom you're gifting your time with, because time and your attention is the new currency, and you should be very selective and conscious about how you spend it.
One last question. This has been a very interesting talk, and I see that you also go very deep in some topics, not just about tech, but in other stuff, like very reflective. I want to just, if you could share for people, if someone in Germany that is listening to this conversation and wants to transition in tech, where should they start? And it's still worth it?
I mean, in this sense, nothing changed. You start with building projects, you Google things, or you ask AI for help, which speeds up the process. I don't know how generations after would learn programming, but the way I know it is that you should do it hands-on. You should not perhaps rely as much on Cursor or Copilot when you start, because you need to train this muscle of problem solving and critical thinking. And there are multiple ways how you can train this muscle, either by, learning math, doing some riddles, solving algorithms. So just get a bit technical, then identify some problems in your life. Everybody has some interests. Some people go to the gym, some people eat healthy, some people are interested in kayaking, whatever it is. Find your interest and try to build a project around it. You'll be at the same time inspired because you have some sort of expertise or interest in this field. Technology doesn't matter, tech stack doesn't matter, none of this matters. You really need to train the way you think, which is you have to split a big problem into parts, approach each part, use your own brain, get inspired sometimes, which is very important, and try to get a job or try to start working on it. It could be even your own company, whatever, as soon as you can. Don't get into this loophole of constant tutorials, buying courses, reading books. It's not helpful. It's not going to help. You need to do something you're uncomfortable about, and oftentimes is to sit down, starting from scratch, and you have no idea where to start. You feel distracted. You feel depressed, upset. You need to overcome these feelings. Eventually, it will get better. You can start using all the tools to speed up your process. I'd say having a team with experienced programmers helps immensely. I learned so much from my colleagues and from working with people. This is very important. If they're nice and if they have this tendency of being good at teaching others, if they enjoy it as well, that helps a lot. Maybe start sharing your journey and try to teach other people what you've learned. It keeps you accountable. You get a lot of rewarding messages from it. It pushes you forward. Specifically in Germany, probably if you want to get into tech, you have to either be in Berlin or in Munich. They have a Google office in Munich. That's why I thought of it. But other than that, Berlin is like a tech hub. Every day there are meetups happening. Most of the meetups here have something to do with programming. There are companies like SumUp, Cloud, Spotify offices, Google office in Berlin. All the companies that are famous have their headquarters here. Tesla has opened their Gigafactory. There are like so many startups. I've met a lot of startup founders just by going to meetups who are desperately searching for programmers, and their primary goal is to find someone nice whom they can work with and trust. Not even skills are their primary motivation. They're ready to teach people. There are a lot of incubators for AI startups where you can get fundings and start your own business, which is a great way to learn. I must say that, Germany as a whole is still very much behind some countries where technology is more advanced, and perhaps because of bureaucracy, things are much faster. So it's a trade-off whether you want to live in Europe and enjoy this laid-back lifestyle. People don't really overwork here, which is a good thing. Everybody finishes at 5 and go drink their beers. So it's a trade-off. You can enjoy this, but probably things are a bit slower than, say, in the States. Or if you're a founder somewhere in Asia, it's just faster and easier. So you can see for yourself, taxes are huge in Germany and in Europe in generally. So in general, if you're planning to have a successful business, which still people do here, you need to consider it. You will pay 50% of it or something around it. Again, there are good things about it and bad things. So you always need to write down, ups and downs and consider what's better for yourself. Not a lot of people do this. I didn't really think about it when I was moving here. I thought Berlin is fun, great nightlife. I made a lot of friends. It was very different from everything I've had before. I wanted to improve my German. I ended up improving my English. And yeah, that's how it started for me.
What's coming next? What are you preparing and where can people find you?
I am launching a longer format of interviews, which you can call a podcast as well, but it's a bit different. It's going to be around business, tech, how to found your company, how to learn new technologies, how to survive AI. I am posting everything on my channel, Coding Elf. I'm primarily active on Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube.
Olga, Coding Elf, has been a pleasure to have you in the conversation in this podcast.
Thanks
so a lot. And for all the people who have listened and you feel that you're paying too much taxes, please don't forget to check the sponsor of this episode, Wundertax. You can reduce a lot of what you're paying. We talk about a bit of high taxes in Europe and in Germany, but you can reduce them if you use the link in the description.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Eduardo, for having me.